Hello, SpongeX here. 1998 truly was a great year for N64 gamers. We were introduced with two of the greatest games ever made in both Banjo-Kazooie and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Great games for single-player audiences. But it also gave us the first entry in one of the greatest multiplayer franchises, aside from Mario Kart or Super Smash Bros. And that was Mario Party. The game that's likely the highest cause of divorce and broken friendships and scorched palms. Okay, maybe it didn't go that far, but I can guarantee it did cause a lot of sibling fights and rivalries, and it did indeed scorch palms. While local multiplayer board games or minigame compilations were nothing new, Mario Party really reinvented it with its own unique genre, mixing a Monopoly-inspired board game with minigames thrown in on the side. What other games have attempted such a strange yet effective hybrid before? Since then, there have been over 16 entries in this never-ending party series, and I decided to revisit each and review nearly every entry in this franchise, going over the game's boards, the mini-games, the features, and more. So starting off with the original 1998 version, for this review I will be playing the N64 online version for Nintendo Switch, being the only official re-release of the game, along with being the cheapest and easiest way to play the game, plus it looks a lot nicer than the N64 original. That, and I have no way of hooking up my old N64 for recording devices anymore, so yeah. So, the game opens up with a silent cutscene showing all the characters having an egotistical argument over who should be the superstar, whatever that means. Toad decides to host a party of events to determine who really deserves to be labeled the superstar, as he leads the crew to the game's hub, Mushroom Village. Mushroom Village is a simple point-and-click menu, but it's still very nostalgic. It's so nostalgic that Nintendo even remade it in HD as the hub for the celebration game, Mario Party Superstars, for Nintendo Switch. Going back to this game kind of makes me sigh, because all these buildings had such unique-looking Toad characters hosted inside of them, with different sizes, shapes, and facial features, yet pretty much every Mario game nowadays has to dumb it down with lazy, recolored Toads with no personality. Even Mario Party Superstars got rid of all these unique-looking Toads and replaced them with just recolored Toads. It really strips Mario Party of its original unique identity. And they also got rid of the cool music and different kind of music that you could listen to on the inside of these buildings, so it kind of sucks the originality out of Mario Party. So each building offers different features and modes. The first building is the Mushroom Shop. We can take the coins that we earn from Party Mode and spend them here for enhancements and side features, something I wish Mario Party games would bring back. Actual rewards for playing the game. It looks mostly empty now, but that's because I bought near everything that was originally here. I'll discuss more on the stuff that can be bought down the line, but two of these items I still have yet to buy. They're the option to basically block off Koopa Troopa or Boos from the board maps. Okay, that sounded kind of wrong. By Boos, I meant the ghosts, not the alcohol. And so, Koopa greets us at the start goal of each map and offers players who reach the goal to get a 10-coin bonus. Players can unlock the option to shut that off. I'm not sure why you'd want to shut off such a feature, but Boo, on the other hand, I can kind of understand depending on who you are. Running into a Boo on a map will give you the option to have Boo steal a range of 1 to 10 coins for free from other players, or you can pay Boo a fee to steal 1 star from another player. Compared to later entries, it is cool how you can steal coins for free, even if Boo does steal a lot less than he did in every game since Mario Party 2. Players also don't need the button match to try to fight the Boo off. It was a pretty useless feature to begin with, because no matter how fast I button mash, it doesn't really seem to help reduce like how many coins I get taken away, so I don't even bother. So yeah, I kind of prefer how Boo was handled in the first game a lot better, and it was cool how it gave you the option to shut him off if you didn't want him. Something that should have been included in every Mario Party game since, and it wasn't really brought back until Super Mario Party Jamboree, the latest entry. It's only accessible if you unlock the Pro mode, which shuts off like the Boos and stuff like that, so yeah. Up next is the bank. So not only is this a status screen for all the stars and coins we've collected through Party Mode, but it serves as the item vault for the enhancements that we've bought from the shop, including the options to ban the Koopa and Boo. So you can buy 2 additional coin banks with different gimmicks. So the default one, it just stores your coins at the end of each party. And then there's one that gives you a small % of interest to the coins that you collect at the end of parties. While the other is a 50-50 gamble that can either double or half the coins that you collect in parties. Considering how one 20-turn party can last as long as 45 minutes, and considering how ridiculous a lot of these unlockables cost, I would not recommend using the gambling bank. More often than not, it would halven my earnings. So yeah, I just stick with the interest bank instead. It usually will give you something around like, oh, it might give you like 1 to 15 coins extra for completing a mode. So not much, but hey, at least I'm not risking losing half of my coins. Some of these unlockable items include dice blocks that can randomly load into gameplay, including a warp block that warps a player to random spaces. It sounds more harmful than good, honestly, considering how it can kick in at random, so there could be a moment where you're right next to the star, and if that thing kicks in, that is bad luck. So, an event block that can summon either Koopa, Boo, or Bowser. It's obviously a gamble since there's a 1 out of 3 chance that Bowser could be summoned and steal 20 coins from you, but you still have a more likely chance of getting 10 coins from Koopa or stealing coins or a star from other players with Boo. So it might be worth trying if you're willing to take that chance. We also get blocks that resemble the colored blocks from Super Mario 64. The red one that resembles the wing cap is the worst. I usually keep this one off at all times. You have to roll from 1 to 10. These colored blocks will randomly appear, replacing the regular dice block, and so if you get the red one, depending on what number you land on, it'll subtract that many coins from your coin count. So if you rolled a 10, for instance, you'd lose 10 coins. So yeah, I don't like keeping this one on. Yeah, there is a chance that it could trigger on a CPU, and it could help slower their progress as well, but I don't see the point in doing it. Usually I end up being the victim when I have that turned on, so yeah, I don't bother. The blue one does the opposite. It gives you coins to match the dice number, so that's one I usually like to keep on. The green dice lets you roll anything between 8 to 10, so that's one that guarantees you a high dice number, where the yellow block only lets you roll 1 to 3, so I usually shut that last one off, because, yeah, there are certain times where it could come in handy where you just need to land on 1 or 3, like, there might be, like, some kind of obstacle that's about to go off in a few turns, and, the best thing to do in a situation like that is to try to get a low dice number, but again, like I said with the warp dice, these happen at random, and so it's not really worth the risk. So at first, I was kind of wondering why later Mario Party games didn't include these dice block options, and then it occurred to me, they did, but they fixed it. The problem with these dice blocks in Mario Party is, like I said before, they occur at random, meaning they can kick in at the most inconvenient times. In Mario Party 2, they introduced the item shops and item spaces, allowing players to buy or earn items to help us throughout the board map, including dice blocks that give us a double or triple roll, ways to randomly warp around the map, and they even give us dice that restrict our rolls to small numbers. So this was honestly a good evolution, for it allowed us to use our items at a time most appropriate to help players strategize. I do kind of miss some of the dice ideas that were introduced in Mario Party though, especially the blue dice. I don't think we ever really got a Mario Party game since then where, depending on what we roll, we get to collect that many coins. So yeah, that's kind of one that I wish they would bring back more. The option house will likely be the least visited menu for any player playing this game. So what kind of sicko wants to go there to delete their save data? Especially considering how many hours you have to put into this game if you want to 100% everything. So it's also home to the jukebox, which serves as the game's sound test mode, so you can just freely listen to the music from the game. That's always a nice feature in games. So going back to this game just really makes me sigh, because the music in Mario Party games used to be fun, dreamlike, and unique, and nowadays it is so boring, generic, and annoying. I mean, you compare the music to modern Mario Party games compared to like the main console games like Mario Galaxy, Mario Sunshine, Super Mario 3D World. The music in those games are great, and so it's jarring when you go from a game like Mario Galaxy 2 to a Mario Party game on Switch or Wii U or something, and the music, it is horrible. It is ear-grating, it is bland, and then you go back to the original Mario Party trilogy, and it makes you go, what the heck happened? There was so much personality in the music back then. So yeah, the option house in Mario Party has one of the strangest yet most interesting takes on the Mario Underground theme from the first Mario game. I would play you a sample, but, you know, Nintendo's very stingy about their music being on YouTube, so never mind. There's also a parrot you can buy from the Mushroom Store who appears in the options house. It's just a little fun feature where just clicking on him, he'll randomly spout out a sound clip from one of the players or NPCs in the game. So, kind of a cute feature. So if we go back to the menu and take the raft, it will take us to Minigame Island, which serves as the single-player mission mode. We travel across the Mario World inspired map and are challenged to complete every single minigame, some with very brutal requirements that aren't normally necessary when playing the game regularly. An infamous example is you have to play Castaway and you have to beat it with 30 coins collected. So despite how tough and frustrating this mode can be, I really do love the layout and music of this mode. I love how the scenery really gives you a hint of what minigames you're about to play next. This is a very unique single-player mode out of the entire Mario Party series, but it's incredibly flawed. Some of these minigames are just brutal, and it expects players to beat them. That is just harsh, especially in a game that depends so much on luck. So if you manage to make it to the end, you are challenged to race Toad and Slot Car Machine, which is surprising because Toad is not a playable character in this game. He wouldn't become playable until Mario Party 5 on GameCube. So the reward for beating him is very underwhelming. You're hoping, oh, maybe you get to unlock Toad as a playable character. Instead, you're gifted with 2 exclusive one-player minigames called Bumper Ball Maze 1 and 2. So you roll around on a ball across these tricky, narrow pathways, and you have to reach the goal under a time limit. And if you manage to beat them both, you get a third and final Bumper Maze. So what's your reward for completing the third? Nothing. So I remembered my younger self being so disappointed by Minigame Island. I spent so many hours, and there were times where I thought I would never beat it, because back then I couldn't figure out how to beat the minigames where you had to rotate the joystick fast enough, and over time I learned that there is a faster way to do it, but more on that later. So I figured there had to have been a fun and exciting reward after beating all of these tough minigames. Only to get such disappointing minigame rewards in the end, it just didn't leave me wanting to come back for more. So I never liked needing to progress through a game by playing challenging luck-based segments. Single-player modes should not have to have modes like that. Luck-based games should be strictly for multiplayer, not for single-player. One thing I did find interesting, though, was how Super Mario Party Jamboree, it had a campaign mode very similar to this. It felt like it wanted to revisit this idea, but make it less strict. So, unlike this, where you have to beat every minigame in order to beat the story mode for this, in Jamboree, no, you get to choose like your own path, basically. So you can choose if you want to complete a minigame to progress forward. All that matters is you got to collect these mini stars in order to open up the boss gates. And so that was a really cool way to try to evolve this idea. I wouldn't say it's as visually impressive, or it's not as well laid out. It doesn't have as good as music as the one in Mario Party's Minigame Island, but it was still a really nice spiritual successor after so many years. Then there's the minigame house, where we can take the coins that we've collected from party mode and we can spend them on minigames to replay as many times as we want. The only downside is that a lot of these minigames are very overpriced. Some are 600 coins, and you're usually lucky to complete a party with only 100 coins in the end. So it doesn't help that it only banks the coins that you yourself have collected, while ignoring the coins and stars that the CPU have collected. This was an issue that was luckily fixed in the sequel, Mario Party 2. So you could also rent the minigames for a lower price, but you're better off just saving up to buy them. I managed to buy them all, and I can't imagine to tell you how many weeks or hours it took for me to get that many coins. To make matters worse, this isn't the first time that I've done it either, for I 100% unlocked everything on the original N64 cartridge decades ago, so it was a pain to have to do it all over again on Switch. The minigame house also features a little Fly Guy toy minigame that you can purchase from the shop. It's not really worth your time. You just spin the joystick as fast as you can to see how far it can fly, which, shocker, is not very far. And then it will insult you for not being fast enough every time. So yeah, don't bother. I do like the idea of having to buy minigames. It's a cool way to try to encourage you to keep playing the game and store up on coins. The problem is that I think the price tags for some of these minigames are just way too ridiculous, especially in a game that requires so much luck where any wrong movement can cause you to lose everything you have. And so it's not fun to spend an hour on a game only to end up with 5 coins, despite how there was a point where you might have had 200 or more. And so, yeah, it makes saving up for some of these minigames a real pain in the butt. And so Mario Party 2 was the last entry in the series where you could actually buy the minigames. Although in Mario Party 2, they were a lot cheaper, luckily, and coins were a lot easier to collect in that game. I do think it might have been for the best that in every game since, you just unlock minigames for free play just by either first discovering them or they just give it to you all at once. Personally, I like the idea of having to play them in the board maps first and then having it added to your minigame collection. For some reason, they scrapped that in some of the GameCube entries, so yeah. The best feature of the minigame house, though, is if you look over to this vase at the right, you will find the minigame stadium. Now, this mode is the quickest and easiest way to earn coins for those who just want to buy all the minigames as fast as possible. You just got to set the handicap to 50 coins. So, the minigame stadium lets you run around an exclusive star-shaped board map decorated with shrubs shaped like the roster. In this mode, there are no stars, no happening spaces, no chance time spaces, no boos, and no Bowser spaces. All you have are the red and blue spaces and the one-player minigame spaces, but landing on the red and blue spaces will not make you lose or gain coins. You also have the Koopa Troopa gold bonus, so you still play minigames after each turn, just like in the regular party mode. It's basically a simpler version of party mode, eliminating most gimmicks and only letting you earn and lose coins through minigames. It's a cool side mode, but it's too bad that this and Mario Party 2 were the only entries to have the minigame stadium as a feature. On to the party mode and board maps. Starting off, there are 6 board maps, each to represent one of the playable characters, and over time we can unlock 2 additional hidden maps. So for those who may have never played Mario Party before, the goal is to roll dice to move our characters around the board maps and collect the most stars. To get stars, you need to walk past Toad, who will randomly spawn across the board every once in a while. So, however, to get a star, you need 20 coins, which can be earned by landing on blue spaces worth 3 coins, while landing on red coin spaces will subtract 3 coins. The best way to earn coins is by beating minigames, which occur after all 4 players have rolled the dice in one turn. Games can last between 20 to 50 turns, with a 20-turn game usually rounding up to about 45 minutes. So each map has its own little conflict or story that can be resolved by the end of the game, treating the superstar like a hero and harshly punishing last place with humiliation. It's kind of shocking to go back to this game and be reminded of how mean-spirited Mario Party used to be, as if getting last place isn't humiliating enough, but to see the losers getting ditched and brutally hurt is just insane. At least it was entertaining. Nowadays, the award ceremonies in Mario Party games are just so bland and uneventful. So Mario Party 1 and 2 had the best presentation when it came to these party modes. They had like great setups and great payoffs, and they just ignore it in the other games, unfortunately, making the party feel kind of uneventful in the end. To start a game, each player rolls a dice from 1 to 10, and whoever gets the highest number goes first, and whoever gets the lowest goes last. I hate to break the immersion, but it doesn't really matter who rolls first. The number is already predetermined before a single player hits the dice. I've said this before, but compared to every Mario Party game since the original developers, Hudson went out of business, the dice rolls have never been the same. The dice rolls used to be rapid fast roulettes from 1 to 10, and it was so satisfying to see the characters jump at them and bash them open. Nowadays, they just simply throw the dice in a sluggish way, and it's only a 1 to 6 dice block. Has the most boring sound effects ever. It just sucks away the charm and thrill from the dice blocks of the original Mario Party games from Mario Parties 1 through 8. The same could be said about the coins. I love the original designs and sound effects of the coins from the first Mario Party, with their rounder shapes and star symbols in the center. These were obviously based on the coin designs from Super Mario 64. And just the sound you get from collecting a bunch of them at once, it was addicting and therapeutic. Ever since Mario Party 9, they ditched the Mario 64 coins. They replaced the coins to strongly resemble more of the bland oval-shaped coins from the original Super Mario Bros. On NES, and they use a higher-pitched bling sound effect when you collect them. It just doesn't hit the same as the ones from Mario Party 1 through 8. Does anyone else feel that way? I've never heard anyone else make that complaint, so please feel free to let me know in the comments if you feel the same way. It would really make me feel better, and because I feel like I'm alone here. I could use some support. Bring back the star coins and sound effects, please. I've already discussed bumping in a Koopa, Boo, and Toad on the maps, so here's what else we need to look out for on the board maps. So we have these little blue spaces with stars on them, and those activate what's called a single-player minigame. So whoever lands on it has to complete a minigame built for one player only, and if they win, they get coins, but they might lose coins if they lose the event, depending on the minigame. Single-player minigames have mostly been removed in every sequel since, but some games substituted them for item minigames, which are still single-player minigames, but they reward you with items instead of coins, and they're usually a lot shorter. So Mario Party is the only entry to not have items, so there are no item minigames here. The single-player minigames were an interesting idea, but they really slow the game down, especially since we're forced to slowly watch the brain-dead CPU slowly and robotically stumble through these minigames whenever they land on them. I can't remember if Mario Party 2 let us skip them, but luckily Mario Party 3 gave us the option to skip the CPU every time they land on item minigame space. It requires pausing the game and messing around with the options. But it really stinks that the first game did not let us skip these, because they drag on forever. It's especially annoying if you actually go through a game where all the CPU land on the minigame space in one turn. It really slows the game down. Going back to the pause options though, Mario Party 1 does have a few pause menu options, but they're mostly used to just speed up speech boxes, skip minigame explanations, and save progress after every turn. So these are nice options for those who've played this game too many times and already know the rules. This is really something that modern Mario Party games should bring back, because I've heard a lot of people complain, myself included, about how Mario Party Jamboree, it was really slow with like the messages that kept popping up, and where in the original game you could just like button mash to skim through them, and so that makes it great for those who've played this game so many times. They already know the rules. We don't need these overly long explanations of where the stars are going to be and what they do if we buy them, or we don't need that explanation. We played these games for years. So unfortunately though, for Mario Party 1, these settings do not save permanently, so every time you start a new game you gotta set these options again, and it wasn't until either Mario Party 2 or 3 where it finally remembered our settings every time, forcing us to not have to pause and change the settings every time. That's an option that nearly every game should have. Then there's the happening spaces, these green spaces with question marks, and they trigger a map exclusive event that can either help or sabotage players on the map. There's also these mushroom spaces that only seem to appear in this game. The mushroom spaces have a 50-50 chance of getting a mushroom that lets us roll the dice again in one turn, or we can get a poison shroom which sickens the player and forces them to skip a turn. Then there are the two spaces that are everyone's worst nightmares. Now first there's the Bowser spaces, red spaces shaped like Bowser's head. Landing on them will summon Bowser to torture the players with a roulette, which can range from Bowser stealing a range of 10 coins, 30 coins, half our coins, to even all of our coins, along with stealing a star, competing in a minigame where the loser loses 10 coins, and chance time. Bowser is also spread across his own spaces on the maps, where bumping into him can lead to map-exclusive punishments, usually involving losing coins, and some of the later ones have it where you can even lose stars. So the game tries treating the Bowser spaces as the worst thing in the game, like the one thing you want to avoid, but the real honor to that, in my opinion, goes to chance time spaces. Chance time spaces are blue spaces with exclamation marks leading to a slot machine game that will force one player to exchange coins or stars with another player. These can range from harmless punishments like just giving 10 coins to annoying punishments like giving all coins or stars and trading all coins or stars with another player. Now this feature absolutely sucks for anyone who worked hard to get so many stars and coins, just to have them all stolen by a random roll of a dice. Losing just 1 star or 20 coins is bad enough, but how about losing everything by being forced to trade 200 coins or 4 stars to a player who has 0 of each? It is the most frustrating feeling I've ever felt in a video game, and now you know why Mario Party is the game that ruins friendships. After each player rolls the dice, a minigame occurs, but there are 3 types of minigames that can be triggered, and these are determined based on the spaces of each player that they've landed on, before the turn has ended. If all the players landed on red or blue spaces, we play a 4-player minigame, basically a free-for-all minigame where it's everyone for themselves to win. If 3 players have a matching red or blue color space, but one player got the opposite color, then we play a 1 versus 3 game. If 2 players got a red space while the other 2 got blue spaces, we play a 2 versus 2 minigame. So you're probably wondering, then what do the green spaces do? Before a minigame is selected, the green spaces will go through a random roulette to change to either red or blue. During the last 5 turns, we get an intermission where Koopa reminds us of what we already know, the current status of each player, who's in first and who's in last. He gives it usually a false prediction over who will win in the end, and he announces that the effects of the blue and red spaces are now doubled, meaning that we can either win or lose twice as much coins. So at the end of each game, an award ceremony occurs, and 3 additional stars are handed out called the bonus stars. 1 for who collected the most coins at one point in the game. So by that, it doesn't matter who has the most coins at the end of the game. It matters who had the highest amount of coins throughout the entire game. Then there's also a star for whoever won the most minigames, and one for landing on the most happening spaces. In the odd event that more than one player might have the same amount of stars, they'll reward it to whoever has the most coins as well. But if by the rare chance that 2 or more players have both the same amount of stars and coins, then they must roll a dice from 1 to 10, and whoever has the highest number is the superstar. Unlike modern Mario Party games, which have nearly 20 playable characters, the first game's roster is very underwhelming in comparison, only consisting of 6 playable characters. So basically the original roster of Mario Kart 64, including Mario, Luigi, Peach, Yoshi, Wario, and Donkey Kong. It wouldn't be until Mario Party 3 where 2 more characters were introduced, and then it wouldn't be until the GameCube era where even more characters are added on top of that. So I've never really heard anyone describe the graphics of Mario Party before, and while it is horribly dated, I find Mario Party to be one of the best looking Mario games on the N64. It has characters like Mario, Luigi, Wario, and Yoshi looking the best they've ever looked on that console. Mario's model does have less polys compared to Mario 64, but it just looks sharper and more defined in shape. You look at like how Mario's body looked in Mario 64, and it just looks like a whole collage of messy shapes. It just looks ugly to look at, where in Mario Party it feels like they use less shapes. And it just makes him looking sharper and just more well-defined, even though he still looks very blocky. I always thought the back of Mario's hair looked really off in a lot of N64 games, like in Smash Brothers or Mario Golf or Tennis, where it just looks like a big pyramid sticking out of the back of his head, and so I feel like it looks more natural in Mario Party. It doesn't look as sharp, and it doesn't look like it's sticking out too far. I'd say the only characters I think look awful in this game are Peach and Donkey Kong, but to be fair, I think Peach looked awful in every N64 game. It wasn't until the GameCube games like Mario Party 4 or Mario Golf Toadstool Tour where I think they finally got Peach a good design. Yeah, she had a really good redesign in that era, and it still carries over into a lot of games nowadays. Donkey Kong, on the other hand, he looks bad in practically every N64 game. I'd say the best he looked on N64 was Donkey Kong 64, and you could argue that model aged pretty badly too, but when you compare it to every other N64 game that had Donkey Kong in it, yeah, he looked a lot better in Donkey Kong 64. Mario Party had a darker yet more colorful art style. I honestly really miss the art style and colors that you'd see in games from N64 and especially GameCube. Ever since the introduction of bloom effects and modern lighting and shaders, too many games aim to simulate more realistic lighting, and it just makes everything look off, makes everything look pale or like a glaring eyesore, and there's always something about like shadows in modern Nintendo games that just look off to me. It's like you look back at some old GameCube games and you notice how the shadows look really soft and blurry edged, and so it makes me go back to like how shading looked like in GameCube games, and I really wish they would somehow bring that back. I miss when we had fantasy lighting in games, just giving off these cooler images that, yeah, they might not be realistic, but they're still really cool to look at. Seeing the kind of colors and lighting from N64 GameCube games mixed with the higher poly models of modern day games, I feel like that would make some of the greatest looking games ever made. Because I'm just sick of realistic lighting. I'm sick of like lens flare. I'm sick of just all these burning lights just burning into our eyes. You know, I just miss how everything used to be dark and vibrant. I miss that kind of art style. This game also marks the first time we got to see Luigi, Wario, and Donkey Kong in real-time 3D. While they were playable in Mario Kart 64, they were not in real-time 3D, for the characters were rendered as sprites from pre-rendered 3D models that would have been too high for the N64 to handle. Otherwise, Mario 64 gave us a look at Mario, Peach, Yoshi, Bowser, Toad, and most of the villains and NPCs that we find in Mario Party. This also marks the first 3D debut of enemies like Hammer Brothers and the Bloopers. At the end of the game, during the results screen, we get some cool little pre-rendered character animations of the characters, and they strongly resemble the pre-rendered character select screens from Mario Kart 64. I wouldn't be surprised if they were from the same 3D models as well. Mario Party 2 does recycle still images from these animations during their character select screen, but they're lacking the animations from Mario Party. Now onto the board maps. To get to them, we have to enter the warp pipe at the center of the hub. Make sure to avoid the option to view the tutorial, or you'll be forced to endure a long, unskippable tutorial screen. The presentation for Party Mode is fun and unique compared to most entries, which just got more boring and static as the series went on. It really feels like we've fallen down a rabbit hole into a wonderland, as we see the characters magically falling down the pipe, as we select our character, select the settings, difficulty, and map, while we get this whimsical tune twinkling in our ears. The board maps in the first 3 games were unique compared to the rest of the series, where instead of 3D maps, they were flat images of pre-rendered CG backgrounds. It was likely done due to memory constraints on the N64 hardware. It wasn't until Mario Party 4 on GameCube where the maps were fully rendered in 3D. The backgrounds may be flat and motionless, but they have a lot of charm, kind of resembling paintings, very similar to the pre-rendered backgrounds of games like Ocarina of Time or Final Fantasy VII. One thing that shocked me about going back to the first entry is how small the spaces look. They are a lot bigger in later entries. The first board map is DK's Jungle Adventure. This map is flooded with pesky womps who are blocking pathways and they won't let us through unless we pay them 10 coins. There's happening spaces that can trigger giant boulder chases that chase players to the other sides of the map. Running into Bowser will have him forcefully sell us a 10 coin treasure resembling himself. It's one of the most basic maps in the game, good for beginners, but it's not one that I like to go back to very often. The ending has the winner using the stars to recover the jungle's golden banana artifact, while the 4th place loser gets chased by a boulder. Peach's Birthday Cake, a smaller board on top of a giant cake. We start at the bottom and spiral our way up the top of the cake. This is one of the few levels where the star is always set in one place, being the top center of the cake. However, there's a gimmick where the closer we get to the top, a pesky Goomba blocks our progress. He forces us to pay 10 coins to buy 1 of 4 seeds that will grow into 1 of 2 flowers. If we get a Toad flower, we can advance to the star. If we get a Bowser flower, we are sent on a path towards Bowser, where he will force us to buy a Bowser cake for 20 coins. There's also these happening spaces which can give us the option to spend 30 coins to plant a piranha plant. If an opponent lands on the happening space with the player's piranha plant, the plant will steal a star and hand it over to its owner. This would be one of the simplest maps in the game if it weren't for the pesky Goomba tolls and the plants. Otherwise, it's still a fun map. Personally, I wish it gave us the option to shut off the Goombas and piranha plants. Like, if it was just a simple lap race to the top and over again, I feel like that would have been a fun option, but forces all these annoying negative gimmicks as well. So, at the end, the superstar lights up all the cake's candles as the loser gets attacked by a piranha plant. Yoshi's Tropical Island, one of my childhood favorite maps. 2 Yoshi lovers are separated by whirlpools and we need the power of the superstars to reunite the two. This fruit-filled map is divided between 2 islands, one with Toad and one with Bowser. We can take these bridges to traverse between the islands, but thwomps are blocking us and they won't let us move unless we pay them coins. The default fee is 1 coin, but players with a lot of coins can actually raise the toll to make it more impossible for other players to try to get through. You can raise the toll all the way up to 50 coins, however, it will permanently stay that way for the rest of the game. I've never seen anyone foolish enough to actually raise it up that high. Usually I've seen people just raise it up by just 1 coin at a time, but sometimes they don't even raise it at all. So the happening spaces cause Big Bertha to eat Toad and spit him up on the other island as Bowser swaps places with Toad. It really makes this an anything can happen kind of map. You can be so close to Toad one turn, but then someone will land on that happening space, and that means, oh boy, you have a date with Bowser the next turn. So it can either give you good luck or bad luck, depending on that flip of the dice. So if we bump into Bowser, he squeezes the player with an overinflated inner tube that explodes, and he forces us to pay for it, 30 coins. In the end, the 2 Yoshis reunite, and the loser gets chased away by Big Bertha. Wario's Battle Canyon. A war has broken out between the pink and black bob-ombs across these canyons, as we hop into cannons to fire to land on random spaces across the canyons to get to the star. At this rate, they miss an opportunity to call it Wario's Canyon. Happening spaces will cause the cannons to change directions. This is one map where it's real easy to avoid Bowser, since the only way to reach him is by paying a fly guy to take you to him, which why would you even do it to begin with? But for the sake of this video, I volunteered to do it just to show what happens. You can also pay fly guy to summon another player to the same canyon where the fly guy is, to try to sabotage a player who may be close to the star. The island of Bowser is flooded with 1-player minigame spaces. Bumping into Bowser will have him take 20 coins from you as he pushes you back into a cannon, and he fires you off back to the canyon where the fly guy is. The level ends with peace being brought between the bombs as the war ends, and Bowser fires the loser out of a cannon. Luigi's Engine Room is probably the most forgettable map for me. It's the one that I don't really enjoy going to. It's just a boring steam engine room with pesky gates that block off paths, and they require us to pay 20 coins if we want to swap them. So yeah, there's really no point in wasting coins on something like that. We already had obstacles like this in DK and Yoshi's maps, so happening spaces just flip the gates, and Bowser's punishment has him operate a machine that produces 1 coin, and he offers us to pick it up, and then right after we pick it up, he says that'll be 20 coins, and then we're forced to pay 20 coins. So it is one of the funnier Bowser punishments. You're only losing 19 coins since he gives us 1 coin and then takes 20 from us. It just feels more like we lost 19 coins instead. So the ending does have a nice reveal, though. As the engine room gets repaired, it's revealed that we were inside the engine room of a winged ship the whole time. It just makes you wonder, why wasn't that the level instead? We should have been running around on a giant airship the whole time, not inside of an engine room. Also, the loser gets tortured by Bowser with steam vents. Mario's Rainbow Castle is one of the prettiest levels with some of the calmest music. It feels like a cross between Peach's Birthday Cake with a little bit of Yoshi's Tropical Island. The map is mostly a one-way trip up and down a tall tower. Toad is always stationed at the top of the tower, but once a star is collected, or if a happening space is triggered, the tower rotates and Bowser shows up instead. Running into Bowser causes Bowser to give players a star. That's star, but with a Z instead of an S. The star forces a player to lose 40 coins. The star actually returns as a bad item in Mario Party 5, with an even harsher punishment, as it steals a star from a player instead of 40 coins. Completing this level causes a rainbow path in the clouds to appear, only for the loser to fall off the rainbow and needing to get rescued by Lakitu. Bowser's Magma level is a hidden level that you can purchase from the shop after playing each board map once. It's a pretty expensive purchase, though. It costs over 800 coins. It's a volcanic level with split paths guarded by these creepy-looking rocks with faces. I'm shocked this is like the only game that these weird little rocks appeared, and it's like you never see them again, so it's like, what was the deal with these things? To take a shortcut to the star, we can pay the signs to roll the dice to get closer to the star. But if we fail, it takes us closer on a path to Bowser. Bowser has a more harsh punishment in this level compared to the previous levels. He'll have us roll a dice to determine whether he'll steal coins or a star from us. Happening spaces cause all of the blue spaces to be turned into red spaces, as Bowser triggers a volcano that burns all the blue spaces in the red ones. Winning this level causes the Power Star to destroy Bowser's volcano, as the hero stands on top of Bowser's defeated body. Also, the loser gets no punishment this time, as they join in with the other players in supporting the Superstar's victory. I sadly don't have footage of this, but you get a real shocking surprise after you've collected 100 stars from Party Mode. Upon returning to Mushroom Village, we are shocked to find that the place is covered with Bowser's footprints, and they lead into the bank and into the warp pipe. As we visit the bank, we find out that Bowser had robbed the place, and he stole all of our stars, and he headed into the adventure pipe. As we head back down to the adventure pipe, the final level now opens, and it's called Eternal Star, a sci-fi level in space. The map takes place on a giant star that Bowser broke, and he wired all the pieces with teleportation pads. So here we are introduced to a long-forgotten villain called Baby Bowser. He is honestly one of the most confusing characters in the Mario series. One minute they say he's Bowser's son, but then there's many of them, so I guess Bowser has sons now instead of just a son. And then, so they appear in many of the early sequels, including the original Mario Party trilogy, and even most of the ones on GameCube. So, the Baby Bowser characters appear in all the Mario Party games across Mario Parties 1 through 7, gapping between the N64 and GameCube entries. But out of nowhere, the Baby Bowsers were renamed to Koopa Kid in Mario Party 5. Then in Super Mario Sunshine, Bowser Jr. was introduced as Bowser's one and only son, and over time the Koopa Kids were just retired entirely with no explanation. I mean, many can argue that Bowser Jr. was a more interesting character than just some generic baby version of Bowser, but it's still jarring for Nintendo to introduce these henchmen offspring out of nowhere, rename them out of nowhere, and then flat out ditch them. I remember being so confused as a kid. So, Eternal Space has us having to use these teleporters to warp us to unpredictable ends of the map. There are multiple star spaces in this game, but unlike most levels where Toad was the host of the stars, in this one, Bowser and his Baby Bowsers take over. And so, if we run into a Baby Bowser with the star space, We have to pay them 20 coins like usual for a star. However, they will force us to beat them in a dice rolling match. And he lets us roll first, and if we roll a higher number, we get to keep the star. Surprisingly, I've seen way more wins of stars compared to losing of stars. Bowser has a strict punishment where he automatically steals a star from us every time. The happening spaces warp everyone back to start if we land on them. In the end, the stars are all rescued. They defeat Bowser and Baby Bowser. They all form together to revive a giant eternal star, as all the players ride the star through space. It's a very triumphant final level with very Star Wars-like music to really fit this sci-fi-like setting. It's amazing how for the first entry in the series, it has probably the most levels out of any Mario Party game. They all have unique themings, designs, along with stories and endings to wrap them all up, something that many entries were missing since the introduction of Mario Party 3 onward. As for the minigames, what Mario Party game isn't complete without minigames? This has the shortest amount of minigames out of any entry in the series, excluding the disappointing Mario Party Advance. It's especially lacking in 2 vs 2 minigames, barely having any. I had a moment where the minigame Bash and Cash was picked 3 times in a row. That gets very annoying in a game where you just want to play a variety of minigames. Now, unlike every sequel in the series, this was the only entry to punish players for losing minigames, causing losers to lose a hefty number of coins. I'm glad they ditched this feature in future games. Getting nothing is annoying enough. It's worth noting that this entry has some of the most controversial minigames in the franchise, for they were actually responsible for injuring people's hands. Some minigames required players to rapidly spin the control stick as fast as they could, and it was physically impossible to do that with human thumbs. So players found that a faster way is to rest the controller on your lap, rest the palm of your hand on the center of the joystick, and rapidly spin your hand clockwise. Not only did this badly wear out the joysticks for many N64 controllers, with how flimsy and skinny they were, but worst of all, the ridges on the N64's controllers slit many players' palms, creating painful sores and blisters. The complaints from parents got so bad that Nintendo was forced to offer victims to call a number to get a free glove sent to their houses, to prevent future blisters. I can confirm that I was one of the many people who got my palm blistered, although I didn't bother telling my parents about it or anything, and we never called anyone to get like a free glove for compensation, so I can still remember the pain and annoyance of having to wear a band-aid on my palm, only for it to keep falling off from sweat, and yeah, it's not a pleasant memory. So every future Mario Party game got rid of the joystick rotating minigames, and they weren't brought back until the minigames were remade in Mario Party Superstars. The minigames were adjusted to be easier to play with. You could just rotate it with your thumb nowadays and be able to win the minigames, so it's less restrictive compared to how ridiculous it was on the originals. So, along with the Switch's joysticks being a lot softer, more rubbery-like, so it makes it less likely for you to get your palms blistered. So for many years, many players noticed that Mario Party never got re-released on Virtual Console, despite how Mario Party 2 was re-released on both Wii and Wii U. Not even Mario Party 3 ever got re-released, and some think it might be due to some of the gambling-based minigames, but somehow it ended up finally getting re-released on Switch anyways. So many think that the main reason Mario Party was never re-released on Virtual Console was solely because of the blisters issue. It's shocking that Mario Party finally got re-released thanks to Nintendo Switch Online, but it has a disclaimer warning players ahead of time that some minigames require rotating the joystick, and they advise that glove is to be worn to prevent injury. So I've played the joystick minigames many times on the Switch version, and I was not wearing a glove, and I've still never gotten a blister. So, on to the regular minigames. First, we got Balloon Burst. So we alternate between pressing the A and B or Z button to inflate Bowser balloons until they burst. The first one to burst is the winner. The key isn't to inflate as fast as you can, but wait for the flickering to appear near the player's pump for a greater burst of air. It's a silly minigame, and it was brought back as a 2 vs 2 minigame in Mario Party 2. Bash and Cash, a 1 vs 3 minigame. This is honestly one of the most mean-spirited minigames ever, and it gives me trauma every time I play it. I have a bad memory of being poorly bullied in school, so when I got home, I tried cheering myself up by playing Mario Party, only for this miserable excuse for a minigame to show up. This is the last thing that a bullied victim needs to endure. One player is trapped in a slow and humiliating Bowser costume, as the other players have to gang up on helpless old you and beat the coins out of you. Seeing all of these characters ganging up on me and bashing coins out of me as I couldn't fight back, it just made me feel more miserable. This game is horrible. There is no way for the single player to win this one. Playing as the team with the hammers isn't fun either. The controls are way too slow and delayed, and it makes it really hard to land a hit. The coins fly out of you too fast as well, meaning they'll likely bounce into a random CPU. I absolutely hate this minigame. It's one of the most mean-spirited and depressing minigames. Super Mario Party Jamboree actually redeemed this minigame with a successor, where 3 players are helpless and 1 player has the hammer. The hammer controls are much faster, and the team of 3 are handed about 10 coins each to start the game, and they can keep whatever they may have left over by the end of it, unlike the original Mario Party, where it takes the coins straight out of your coin bank from the regular gameplay. It just felt a lot more fun and less miserable in Mario Party Jamboree compared to the one from Mario Party. Bobsled Run. A 2 versus 2 minigame where we start off button mashing to push our bobsleigh onto a sled track as we race to the finish. It's a fun minigame, but the frame rate and visuals have aged horribly, and it really makes this feel kind of sluggish. So there's a hideous glitch at the end where Luigi's face gets messed up, so have fun sleeping tonight, kids. This minigame also returns in Mario Party 2. Bombs Away. Bowser's pirate ship attacks the players as we run around on a small tilting island as we dodge cannonballs and avoid falling into the water. I used to love this one as a kid, but I honestly don't like it very much anymore. It's hard to see where the cannons are going to fall, and it mostly takes dumb luck. Sometimes the cannons will just stun you, and sometimes they'll just automatically kill you. It just feels way too unpredictable. This minigame returns in Mario Party 2, but it's amped up with bullet bills and a rocket finale. Bomb Skip Ball, a 2 versus 2 game where one player has a bomb and needs to throw it to the hoop on the other end, while avoiding the other team from getting it and scoring it through the same hoop. You can run around, jump, and pass the ball to your partner. This is a fun idea for a minigame, but with a lot of drawbacks. This should have had a 2.5D side-scrolling camera angle, and it should have had 2 hoops, one for each opposing team. The minigame's biggest crime, however, is the brain-dead CPU. They walk around like zombies. They do absolutely nothing upon grabbing the bomb, leaving the other brain-dead CPU open to stealing the bomb. I really wish I could have liked this, but the CPU just ruined this minigame for me. Bowl Over, a 1 versus 3 minigame where 3 players are trapped in bowling pin costumes, with nothing to do but slowly hop around with the A button, as one player bowls them over with a Koopa shell that we can steer with the control stick. Make sure not to hit the electric barriers. They're very easy to miss, unless you're as dumb as the CPU. If we knock over an opponent, we can take 5 coins from them. I actually like this minigame a lot as long as you're the bowler, but being in the pin costume could have been a lot better. What ruins the bowling pin gameplay is the invisible barriers that prevent players from hopping out of the way. Without these barriers, this minigame would have been a lot more fun. I'm real split on this one, to be honest. It's part fun, but part terrible depending on which side you're on. This minigame does return in Mario Party 2, but with the restriction of needing the bowler to bowl over all 3 opponents within 2 turns. If we fail, the 3-player team actually wins coins. So unlike the first game where the people in the pin costumes can get absolutely nothing, no matter what, they're losers. And so I do like how Mario Party 2 does give the players a chance to stick up for themselves. However, you still got the annoying issue of the invisible barriers, so it kind of ruins that minigame too. Box Mountain Mayhem. Each player needs to punch down a giant tower of boxes with coins inside of them, but some feature dummy boxes that fling us away. It's a fun destruction fest, but the controls do feel very slow and clunky. Bumper Balls. One of the first minigames that many people think of when they hear the word Mario Party. This chaotic minigame has players running on top of a ball on a small island as we try bumping the other players off without falling. It's a fun, tricky, and unpredictable minigame, but it can really get dull if there's only 2 people left. It really makes it feel too evenly matched. So have fun just watching 2 people bounce back and forth with nothing happening. It gets boring after a while. Super Mario Party did a great job at revamping this minigame, where we are rolling around inside the balls and we can rev them up for a burst of speed. So yeah, I actually do think they did a lot better at revamping that one for Super Mario Party. Buried Treasure. Each player presses the A button repeatedly to dig through the dirt and find the hidden treasure. It's actually kind of fun. Castaways. 3 rows of coin prizes float across the ocean as we flick the joysticks downwards to cast our line and rotate it in to reel in our rods. There are 3 ranges of distances that your rod can cast, but the sensitivity of the joystick makes it impossible to hit the right spot. You try lightly tapping it to cast it short, but instead it casts it as far as it can, which wastes a lot of time as you have to try to reel it in. This would have worked a lot better if we just had to hold the A button for a gauge to appear to show us how far it can go. Another issue is the field of view. It's way too easy for players to miss their catch due to there not being any like crosshairs or good way to imagine where your line is going to land. It's especially annoying for players who are on the very left or right of the screen. It might be a little easier if you're player 2 or 3, but if you're player 1 or 4, this minigame is a nightmare. There's a fun minigame idea here, but it's ruined by horrible controls and a bad point of view. Coin Block Bash. They call it 1 versus 3, but it's really more of a free-for-all minigame. One player starts off with a hammer, which they can press B to swing to knock opponents away, or we can swing it forward with the A button to smash blocks, while the other players can only punch and jump. The goal is to collect the most coins by bashing these blocks. Obviously, the one with the hammer will have the advantage of getting the most coins, but the other opponents can manage to knock the hammer out of their hands and take it for themselves. It is strange how the first Mario Party seems to be the only entry in the series where 1 versus 3 minigames do not count as team minigames. I'm shocked that they didn't make more games like these in the future. It's overall a simple but fun one, especially if you're the one with the hammer. Coin Block Blitz, a clone of the last minigame, but a 4-player minigame this time. The blocks aren't made of bricks, so they're easier to punch through, and they can contain more than one coin in them, requiring multiple jumps. Coin Shower Flower, a 1 versus 3 game. The player on the flower needs to be careful not to fall off, or the game ends. Meanwhile, 3 players below paddle around on these leaf boats to collect any of the coins that player 1 might have missed. It's obviously more fun if you're the one on top of the flower, but it's one of the better 1 versus 3 minigames. Crazy Cutters. We guide our characters on jackhammers as we draw out the shapes of Mario baddies. Whoever draws the most accurately wins, or so it should be. This game has a terrible sense of line accuracy. There were times where I drew near perfect lines, yet it rewards the CPU who clearly drew over the line multiple times. If it weren't for the faulty ranking, I would have given this a perfect score because it is a fun minigame. This minigame has a few variants, so we can either draw a Goomba, a Boo, or a Bob-omb. This minigame returns in the sequel, Mario Party 2, with even more enemies to draw out. Crane Game. The worst 1 versus 3 minigame. One player can be moved around on a crane as the other players are turned into plush prizes. The crane controller can either go for the coin prizes ranging from 1, 5, or 10 coins, or go for the opponents and rake in half of their coins. This one is absolutely hopeless if you're the victim. They say you have the option to button mash the A button to try to break free, but don't bother, it doesn't work. The CPU are overpowered to outrank you every time. So most often I have a range of 200 or 300 coins in a party mode, and I lose half of it because this damn minigame gets picked and I'm one of the plush prizes. So the CPU always want to go for whoever has the most coins, so yeah, I'm usually screwed every time this minigame gets picked. Meanwhile, when I'm controlling the crane, the button mash requirement is too extreme and I can never collect anything more than the 5-coin bag. I hate this minigame. It sucks no matter what side you're on, but especially if you're a plush figure. The plush designs are kind of funny looking though, but this minigame can lead to a lot of many lewd looking images depending on how you grab the other players. The animations just make this really uncomfortable to look at. It was brought back in Mario Party 2 as a revised challenge, being a lot easier and less punishing. Deep Sea Divers, a 2 versus 2 minigame where one player from each team is a swimmer tied to their partner's fishing rod. The swimmer needs to swim by tapping the A button and steering with the left stick to collect treasure chests, while their fishing partner has to rotate the joystick to help reel in their partner with the treasure. Make sure to come up for air every once in a while or they'll drown and lose time. It's not an awful minigame, but it's not fun to be the fisher. The treasure diver is basically the more fun part of this minigame. Desert Dash. We flick the joystick left and right at the right time to scoot across the desert while avoiding the thwomps. First to the finish wins. It's overall way too simple. It does return in Mario Party 2 as a hidden re-themed game called Dungeon Dash. Facelift, one of my favorite minigames, based on the interactive menu from Super Mario 64, where players could mess with Mario's face by stretching it. So this minigame mimics the same controls as we have to mess with Bowser's face to match an image, and whoever matched it the most accurately wins. This game got a fun return in Mario Party 2, but instead of Bowser, we have to mess with 6 variants of the playable characters. Ghost Guess, a 1-player minigame where we're surrounded by boos and have to guess which one has the coins before they gang up and take the player away. guess wrong, and we lose. I love the creepy visuals and music of this minigame, but I'm not a fan of the gameplay. They say to look out for the shadow of the boo that moves differently from the others, but they all look and move the exact same, so I just don't have fun with this one. It's just not a fun guessing game. Grab bag. Each player runs around with a bag on our backs as we try to get behind another player and button mash the B button to steal coins from our opponents, allowing players to keep their winnings or accept their losses. Ground pound, a one-player minigame where many wooden pegs are covered by butterflies and we need to ground pound all the flat top pegs, but some of them might have spiked tops and we need to avoid those. Even with the butterflies, it's still kind of easy to figure out which ones are the correct ones, but it's overall a simple yet effective game. Hammer drop. Each player runs on top of a tower and avoids the Hammer Bro's hammers while collecting the coins that he throws. The Hammer Brother looks so bizarre in this game. It looks a lot meaner and nastier. Probably the meanest and nastiest a Hammer Brother has ever looked. And to think this is his first appearance in 3D, and it was his only appearance on N64. It wasn't until Mario Party 5 on GameCube where they gave us the Hammer Brothers more cuter and modern redesign. I actually really like this minigame. It's fun, easy, and it showers us with glorious coins. Handcar Haylock, a 2 vs 2 minigame as we button mash to accelerate handcarts, as we tilt the joystick to steer on the track. This one has some very tricky turns and they require braking or they will fling us off the track. It's overall an annoying minigame, but it's made a bit easier in Mario Party 2, but it's still an aching button masher. Hot Bob-omb. Hot potato, but with a bob-omb. Each player passes the bomb until it explodes. Whoever it explodes on, it causes that player to be the loser. It might be a dumb luck game, but it's still kind of fun. This minigame also returns in Mario Party 2 as a battle minigame, and it's treated as an elimination game this time, where last one standing wins. Hot rope jump. We time our jumps with the A button to try lasting 20 jumps under a jump rope made of flames. If anyone gets hit, the game ends and they lose. It was an interesting idea for a minigame, but abruptly ending after one player loses is a real game killer, not to mention how it doesn't reward players who actually survived it. So the only way to actually get coins from this one is for everyone to actually make the 20 jump mark. And also the CPU never seemed to lose this minigame, so yeah. This minigame was done much better in Mario Party 2, where it was treated more as a survival challenge, where it rewards whoever managed to make it to the end, instead of ending as soon as someone gets knocked out. Keep away. A rare case where all the players have to work together to win. We need to get a key to the other end, but it's blocked off by these strange one-off enemies we've never seen again. The idea of passing the key to fellow teammates to get the key to the goal is a fun idea, but the CPU are brain-dead idiots who slowly meander around and practically hand or throw the keys to the bad guys. This one is just more fun to play with friends, but it is a nightmare to play with CPU. Knock Block Tower, a one-player minigame where a player has to jump and break boxes stacked on top of these thwomps in order to reach the treasure chest on top, but you need to avoid hitting the thwomps or they will bounce you off the tower and you will lose. It is tricky but kind of fun. Limbo Dance, another one-player game where we have to limbo across all these limbo bars and reach the goal. We have to hop with the A button to go lower. You can't go too fast or your character will fall over and lose. You can't bump into the bars either, or it's also a game over. The controls for this are really confusing. Why do we have to hop to go lower? That makes no sense. Instead of simply just walking or something. I feel like nowadays this probably would have worked better if it was a minigame where you had to balance yourself by moving the right joystick or something to adjust your balance or something, but it's still a fun challenge. Mario Bandstand, a rhythm game where one player is the conductor and the other three are the bandmates. The bandmates have to tap the A button to the timing of the instrument symbols on the screen, while the conductor tilts the joystick in time with the moving arrows. It's terribly easy and really boring, and the music is very irritating. Memory Match, a one-player memory match game where we ground pound on switches to flip them over. Each matching pair we get earns us up to 2 coins, and we get 10 coins altogether if we match all the pairs within the time limit. Watch out for the Bowser panels, which will daze you if you activate them. It gives you just enough time to match all of them without any mistakes. It's a simple but fun one. Mushroom Mix-Up. The players stand on platforms made of colored mushrooms. Toad will raise a flag matching a mushroom's color, which all the players need to race and jump onto before all the other mushrooms sink into the water. Anyone who falls into the water loses. The rounds get much faster as time goes on. This is a fun and very chaotic minigame. Just try not to jump on anyone or they will likely bounce you to your defeat. This minigame even returns in Mario Party 2 with a new look and name, Hexagon Haylock. Musical Mushroom, a game of musical chairs but with a giant mushroom in the center. The player runs around a giant mushroom as music plays, but as soon as the music stops, the players need to race to the top of the mushroom and get the treasure. It's a simple but fun game. Paddle Battle, the only joystick rotation game I actually like in this. In this 1 versus 3 game, one lone paddler has to out-paddle the opposing team of 3 paddlers to push the opposing team towards these tribal Shy Guys. It may have similar gameplay to a later game called Tug of War, but this one is visually and more conceptually fun. I do question why it has to be 1 versus 3 though. It honestly would have worked better as a 2 versus 2 game. Pedal Power, an annoying one-player minigame. One of the few minigames with the infamous joystick rotation controls. We have to rotate the joystick to power an electric bike to power a giant light bulb before a giant boom takes us away. The joystick rotation is boring and exhausting, but the atmosphere and music does set a rather spooky tone. Pipe Maze. Hard to believe this is a 1 versus 3 minigame, for no one is really on a team. This is a simple pipe maze where one player has to choose one of 4 pipes to drop a treasure chest, and as the treasure chest goes through the pipe maze, it will end up near a player, and whoever it ends up near gets to keep the treasure. It's mostly a dumb luck minigame. It does give you a very short and fast glimpse at the maze as it scrolls up at the beginning, but it doesn't give a very clear view to fully process the layout. I was never really a fan of dumb luck games or branching maze games like this. Piranha's Pursuit, a 1 versus 3 game where one player has to button mash to skateboard away from a killer moving piranha plant as we jump over fallen trees and swing across vines for a boost. Meanwhile, the 3-player team has to ground pound on a cloud to cause it to rain to make the piranha grow faster and bigger. I'm not a fan of this one for both ends. The minigame goes on for far too long, the button mashing gets tiring, the vine clinging feels very unresponsive, which can lead to very cheap deaths. Being on the cloud is pretty boring as well, and making the piranha grow doesn't seem to do much to stop the CPU player. It just takes dumb luck to win against the CPU. That is honestly the creepiest piranha plant I've ever seen in a video game. The way it moves is just so unnatural, buggy, and nightmarish. I don't like it. Platform Peril, a tricky platforming challenge where we race across a series of narrow platforms to reach the goal first. It can be very anxiety-raising. It would have been better off if it wasn't a race, and at least should have rewarded those who managed to make it to the finish, but it's still a fun one. This one does return to Mario Party 2 with more divided and trickier platforms. Running of the Bulb, this is one of the most unique minigames in the franchise. It's shocking that they've never done another one like this aside from Keep Away from the same game. Running of the Bulb is a rare case where the 4 players must work together to win the minigame. One player has a light bulb that they need to rush to the other end of the hallway to light the place up and scare away the boos. However, we are being chased by a giant boo as other boos come phasing through the walls. It's up to the other 3 players to protect the one at the light bulb by punching out the boos, but watch out, getting touched by a boo will possess them to try stealing the light bulb. The trance players can get the ghost punched out of them by their partners. If the ghost reaches the light bulb, it's game over. This is a tough challenge, but it's so satisfying if you manage to make it to the end. My only complaint is that the controls are too slippery. It's like you let go after running and the characters slowly take a few steps forward, and no, it's not because of joystick drift. It wasn't until the 2 Super Mario Party games on Switch where they finally made modes dedicated to cooperative minigames. So it's nice to see the spirit of this minigame lives on in some of the Switch entries, 2 decades later. Shell Game, a 1-player game where we watch Koopas shuffle around and we have to pick the one with the treasure. Just one of those dumb shuffling prizes in a cup game. Shy Guy says, I hate this one. A Shy Guy captain raises one of 2 flags mapped to either the A or B button as we have to raise our flags to match his movement, or he'll cut our line and eliminate us from the game. Last one standing wins. This one is just boring and frustrating. Eventually, he tries faking us out by pulling out 2 flags at once, and he'll even sometimes put them away multiple times at once, and he doesn't give us the option to correct ourselves if we tried matching one of his fake outs. I just never liked this one. I groan every time it gets picked, and I'm so sick of this being a minigame that Nintendo refuses to let die. They keep bringing it back in so many entries. Skateboard Scamper, a button-mashing platformer, as we ride skateboards to escape from falling in lava as we jump over thwomps. It's a fun idea, but the button mashing requirement is real tiring and boring. I would have preferred it if we could have just steered our characters to ride over speed boosts or something. Give us more control and not have it to require us button mashing like crazy to win. I don't know. This main game does return with a haunted makeover in Mario Party 2. Slot Car Derby. Our big-headed characters drive around in these incredibly tiny cars as we accelerate by pushing the joystick. As a kid, I hated this minigame. My character kept spinning out of control, and over the years, I learned that you have to let go of the joystick when the dust clouds start appearing, or the characters will spin out. If you have the rumble controls on, you can also let go when you start feeling a small rumble. This minigame comes in 2-track variants, so even after learning how to play this minigame properly, I still find it very boring and annoying. Slot Machine. A lame one-player minigame where we spin a slot machine and try matching symbols to get coins. If we fail, we lose coins. Teetering Tower. Another one-player minigame where we have to hop across falling towers to reach the goal. The key is to slightly move in the direction of a nearby tower and hop off at the right time. It is very tricky at first, but after some practice, it's a fun challenge. I also love the visuals, like the character's silhouette at the beginning and the moonlit background at the end. Tightrope Treachery. Jeesh, is every 1 versus 3 minigame in Mario Party 1 terrible? One-player tightropes as the team of 3 steers tiny ship cannons to try to shoot the rope crosser into the water. This minigame takes dumb luck, the aiming is hard, and shooting the roper usually does nothing. Rarely do they stun or knock them out. Being on the tightrope is boring as well. I just do not like this one. It's, for some reason, returns in Mario Party 2, but for some reason it's a really ridiculously hard to unlock bonus minigame. It was given a rehaul and renamed to Rainbow Run. Tipsy Tourney. The players run around while tilting a tiled board as we try guiding a Koopa shell to slide across all these tiles to flip them over and reveal an image. Whoever completes the full image first wins. This minigame does return in Mario Party 2, but with animated slide images, it's kind of a boring minigame. Treasure Divers. It's like Deep Sea Divers, but better. A 4-player minigame where we dive down a less deeper ocean and we try hauling back as much treasure as we can. No fishing rods required. Watch out for the sharks and bloopers. You also got to make sure to come up for air every once in a while. It's overall a fun race for gold. Tug of War. Another one of the infamous blister-inducing minigames. A 1 versus 3 minigame where one player in a Bowser suit has to play tug of war against 3 opposing teammates as we rotate the joystick. The loser gets flung into a Sarlacc pit knockoff with a giant piranha plant. I was never a fan of the joystick rotation minigames, and this has to be my least favorite out of all of them. And finally, there's Whack-A Piranha. Best one-player minigame in my opinion, and it's honestly one of the most fun takes I've ever seen of Whack-A-Mole. So Piranha Plant pops out of the warp pipes as we try combo jumping off of their heads, earning a coin for each head bopped. Make sure not to fall off of the pipes, though. There's something so fun about that. Turning Whack-A-Mole into a platformer, and it works really well. I'm surprised you don't see a lot of this in other Mario games. So overall, Mario Party has shown its age quite a bit. There are better entries on both the N64, GameCube, and even Switch, depending on who you ask. But when you look at it on its own, like ignoring all the other games that came after it, it still holds up on its own. It may not be as polished or have as much content as some of the other entries, but for a game that was released midway through the N64's life, it is packed with a lot of charm and fun, but it also has an equal mixture of frustration as well. Gameplay-wise, I do find it to be the weakest of the N64 trilogy, but it still has a great presentation with its menu and small stories tied in with its board maps. I've already done a review of Super Mario Party Jamboree, so if I were to rank these games from best to worst, I'd say Mario Party would be at the bottom so far. I give Mario Party a 7 out of 10. So join me next time when I review Mario Party 2. Thank you for watching, see you next time, and have a great day.